Yes.
Fantastic. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the MSRC Research Seminar. In a minute, Raghu will introduce our speaker, but I'm just going to give you some pointers for the housekeeping for this digital seminar. If you could keep your mics on mute and videos off for the duration of the talk, just so we're kind of preserving the bandwidth really, and to avoid any issues with connectivity. And then you can unmute when we have the discussion. If you have any questions during the talk, if you could put them in the chat, we can kind of address those in a kind of discussion session at the end. That would be really great. Yeah, so that's really for me. And so Raghu.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. Right, it's my great pleasure to introduce Professor Anna Madill from the University of Leeds for this seminar session. Anna Madill is the chair of Qualitative Inquiry in the School of Psychology, University of Leeds, and she's also a fellow of the British Psychological Society and the Academy of Social Sciences. She co-founded and chaired the BPS Qualitative Methods in Psychology section, and works on a number of projects funded by Global Challenges Research Fund. Anna's research is broadly in the field of well-being, gender and sexuality. And we also, myself and Brown, also work with Anna on an APSRC GCRF project on mainstreaming global mental health, a praxis nexus approach. And Anna's talk is actually on reflecting on the big picture, a GCRF, using visual methods to understand youth substance abuse in Assam, which is an ESRC GCRF funded project alongside the mental health literacy project that we have. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Anna to the seminar. Thank you, Anna.
Hey, well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really delighted to be here. As Raghu has said, this particular study, the big picture that I'm going to be talking about, was funded in the same round as Raghu and Brown's second GCRF, maybe even third. But that's where I kind of found Raghu and Brown in terms of putting in for seed funding for a challenge cluster on mental health, which we were very fortunate to get in the seed funding, and we're going into a second round for a mental health challenge cluster related to the GCRF. So it's just incredibly exciting. I'm going to tell you about this GCRF, which is in India, and it's my first GCRF and my first time working in India, my first time working in overseas development type of work, and it's been one hell of a steep learning curve. so I'm going to give you some kind of facts about what we're doing, but I'm also going to just kind of almost like kind of associate a bit to de-traumatize myself. It's going really well, but all the different things that I've discovered, and I hope, you know, and that I've learned for going into other GCRF, and I'm wondering how I can get down to, certain slides are now working. Okay, so in this particular study, just to give you a little bit of background, we're working in India. We're working in the state of Assam, which is in the northeast of India. You might know it in the UK for its amazing tea growing, and indeed there's a lot of tea growing still. It's the biggest the biggest industry in Assam. There is a huge youth substance abuse problem in India, as in many other places. So this study was about trying to understand youth substance abuse, but from a resilience perspective. We wanted to go in with the position that young people are resilient and can become more resilient, kind of be strong in the face of the availability of substances, at increased risk, but also in their recovery. And we wanted to stake this position of resilience. And we were interested in young people's perception of risk, and young people's perception of how they can be supported in their recovery from substance abuse. And of course, substance abuse is very linked to mental health. It's one of the categories of the DSM, if we want to kind of pull in that direction, which I don't particularly, but also there's many comorbidities between substance abuse and mental health that we know. So this study was about trying to increase our knowledge, because there is very little knowledge about youth substance abuse in Assam. We were interested in enhancing the voice of young people, and particularly to find ways to facilitate young people to talk to power, to inform practice, to impact policy, to increase public awareness within a culture where there is a lot of stigma on both mental health issues and substance abuse, as there is in the UK. Who's funding? We're very delighted to be funded by the ESRC, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, within the Global Challenges Research Fund. This was a joint funding by the ESRC and AHRC, which is really pertinent here, and particularly with my increasing connection with Raghu and Brown, that we're using visual methods, so we're really interested in arts-based methods. And that makes the Arts and Humanities Research Council really pertinent here. And a bit of my learning is that I think the Arts and Humanities Research Council are really interested in building a portfolio of their funded work in mental health. I think they do that, and I think they are increasingly interested in doing that, given the amount of evidence that arts-based methods, particularly when you're working for populations, in public health and in developing countries, arts-based methods are just an amazing way to support mental health, and psychosocial well-being. So what are we doing? and this study is meant to finish at the end of February. We've asked for a no-cost extension, so fingers crossed. But we are actually we're pretty much on track. But with COVID, we're hoping to have an extension to allow us to do a lot of the impact work when people are more willing to meet face to face. So that's kind of where we are at the minute. But we had we've managed to recruit. We only have one more person to recruit. And we have been analysing as we've been going. We've not had to recruit and then analyse. We've been, it's qualitative work. So we've been analysing as we've gone along. But we've been very interested, our samples are two groups of young Assamese people, 15 to 18-year-olds who are at increased risk of substance abuse, but who have stayed clean. And the increased risk indicators for us, the easiest one was that an older member of their family had a substance abuse problem. That does make young people at increased risk, but these young people were staying clean. So we wanted to understand how they were managing. And then 19 to 24-year-olds who had engaged successfully with drug rehabilitation and who had been drug-free for a year. And that's really difficult. It's one thing I've really learned. The AA, Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous are global. And the interpretation in Assam anyway, and I think probably across India, but I couldn't absolutely vouch for it, is that being clean means not even taking a painkiller. And I don't think that's the standard everywhere. And that's tough. If somebody takes a paracetamol for a headache, they're deemed to have relapsed. This is utterly, it's really, really, really rigorous and really high standard to stay drug-free. And some of the interviews that we've done, it's so interesting to read about the, even not accepting food from somebody you know is still using. If you accept food from them, that becomes a borderline kind of grey area in terms of relapse. So what we've done is invited our participants to bring photographs to an interview with our research fellow in India. I've got a picture of her a bit later. We've been using the photo elicitation methods for a while, and I've got a little bit on that later on. This is our main way of using visual methods is photographs. But in this study, we've also moved into creating posters, and I've got a couple of posters to show you as part of our impact plans, and for our young people to take part in filmmaking. And if we have time, I've got some links to films, but maybe what I'll do is wait and see if you're maybe interested in seeing that at the end, or if you can maybe click, you'll have these and can click on the links. Doing this work has really introduced me to the amazing pleasure of filmmaking, and I'm not doing the filmmaking, but apparently I'm an executive producer, which is very nice. But I'm working with people who do filmmaking, and our research fellow has picked this up really, really quickly. And I am just completely sold on this as a method of working with any kind of research where you want to have any kind of impact, I suppose, but with young people making a policy impact, it's just truly amazing. Another part of our project is to map the research to policy pathways in Assam, and I have a PhD student who's doing that, so that will help us move on with this work into policy. And I'm not a policy person, but I know somebody who is, and that's another thing I've really learned doing this kind of work is, of course, it's about gathering the team who have the expertise. And I've learned so much. I know nothing about policy, and now I'm beginning to learn a little bit about this as an area of a discipline that I didn't even know really existed until quite recently, or was such a big, important discipline. And we're collaborating with our partner organisations in India, of course, to understand the potential of embedding visual methods in their work and to build their mental health research and delivery capacity. So that's what we're doing. Just to give you some examples, here's a poster from one of our older group. It says at the bottom there, Assamese man, 24, in successful recovery from drug addiction. And I don't know whether you can read the small print. I don't suppose that's really that important, but the message there, I didn't know I was choosing to be shackled. We're going to use these in a social media campaign. We're going to do events and put up our posters. We're going to have them printed, make them really, really huge. We've given our participants a print of their poster to say thank you. And also, as you can see, this kind of advertises our social media, our website and our Instagram, Facebook and Twitter accounts. And here's another example from our group. So this is, and again, this is an example, and this has got one of the photographs on it that this participant, an 18-year-old Assamese man, successfully resisting substance addiction. Here's one of the photographs that he brought, and our research fellow has been working with young people to create these posters. A little bit of learning for me is working with teenagers is like herding cats, and I do have one teenager myself, but I can herd one cat. Our research fellow has done an amazing job. I've talked through with her about the extent to which the issues are cultural or life stage, and I think there's a little bit of both. But she's done an amazing job of adapting to supporting them and checking out how much they want to do themselves, and then kind of filling in the gaps, and then just checking with them that they're happy. The principle of participant-led is of course a crucial one and highly important. The learning for me is also about being highly pragmatic, and I'm actually, I think, a reasonably pragmatic person anyway, and I'm very comfortable with doing collaboration with the young people as much as we can support them in their wish to do that. But quite a lot of the time they kind of don't want to. You can't make them. But then it's finding things that they want to do and are excited about getting involved with. So I hope we're getting the balance right, but we're kind of learning about that supported collaboration, and I've read some research papers and been to some meetings where, you know, I feel kind of validated that that's kind of okay, that it's just, you know, kind of acknowledged that sometimes, you know, you'd like to do more participant-led, but it's not what they're really wanting at that point. But some do and some don't. Involved in our study. I will finish on time, just to let you know that I'm not going into our results particularly. I'm talking more about the process. So who's involved? Well, we have 2 wonderful partners and one who's been okay. I'm glad it's been that way around. Two wonderfuls. It's just is great. So Mind India is a well-being hub in Guwahati in Assam, who I cannot praise enough. Sangeeta Goswami, who is the president of Mind India, has just been our absolute rock. So we are working with them in terms of being advised about the mental health input, cultural appropriateness, and we're going to work with them going forward in terms of development of interventions. Near Man Rehab Facility is a private rehab facility, drug rehab facility. They're all private. There's some hospital treatment, but this is private sector in developing countries again. It's coming across to me a lot, you know, my naivety, but yeah, it's virtually all private sector in this area. Near Man are just wonderful, and our contact Ratul Day has just he's just worked magic to support young people to come into our study, and it's just been amazing. Hope Foundation do a fantastic job, but they're just completely run off their feet. And Dipankar, who's our contact, he just doesn't stop. It's just been very difficult for them to engage. But that is the reality, although they have managed to find us some participants. But Near Man have just been so wonderful. And this is a collaboration between the University of Leeds and the University of Brighton. So Rebecca Graber at Brighton is one of my former PhD students, as is our research fellow, Regini Duara. So on that, one of my learning is, you know, I really want to develop my former PhD students, and Rebecca and Regini were just fantastic. And I actually wrote this grant around Regini because she is Assamese and was working and had gone back to Assam and really wanted to work in research. So I wrote it around her, and she's just been marvelous. So we want to continue working with her. And Chloe Brooks is a new PhD student who's doing the mental health to policy pathways. And our advisors, I must admit, and this is something I'd really like to talk to Raghu about, is you kind of feel you have to tick, well, I felt I had to kind of tick a box by having a set of advisors. So our steering group is kind of some people, people from our partner organizations, me and Regini, our research fellow, whereas our advisors are from different parts of India and one person from the UK. And I haven't, although I keep our advisors in touch, I haven't really had to use them. Diptarup Chowdhury, yes, because we did our ethics through the Regional Institute of Mental Health in Assam, but otherwise maybe they'll come into their own when we're doing more impact work. But I'm wondering whether an advisor board becomes, for me, just a little bit of a tick box exercise. And I'm not sure whether it's that necessary, well, whether we're really, or maybe I'm just not using our advisors in the best way, but that's something that I'd really like to talk to more experienced GCRF researchers, whether how they use their advisors and you know, kind of how I might use that better, or whether I can just not put it in. So we went, a couple of us went to Assam, January 2019. I am not a traveller. I hate going on holiday. I just go and visit my mum in Edinburgh from a holiday. So this is actually our plane. I went, I kind of went and cried on our business manager's shoulder and said, me going to India, I you know, if I get there, will be it will be, you know, kind of like a miracle. If I get there and get back, it's not going to happen on my own. So she was the first, you know, was absolutely, she'll come with me. So managed to find a good reason, and in fact there is a good reason, because we needed to work out the contracts, and that was tricky. But this is a plane, one of her friends traced our plane, and this is us coming into Mumbai. If you can see that blue line, her friend was getting really worried that the sat nav wasn't working on the plane and we were going to miss Mumbai. Luckily we didn't know anything about that. Obviously it was just circling because it was a little bit early, but we were on that red plane, and Mumbai airport is really badly signposted. Can I just say that? It's brand spanking new. It's new one, but it didn't have any. Here is the staff of Mind India, Sangeeta Goswami, wonderful, wonderful, PhD, educated. She started this organization with her husband, but she is the president, and I am really impressed. The women of India, I bow to them. This is, you know, they are strong and go ahead, and you know, absolutely no stopping them. There she is with her team. So here's me and Ratul and our business manager and Ragini outside Nirman Rehab Centre. Little bit of learning for me. Everybody called me ma'am. Never been called ma'am before in my life. And everybody stood up when we walked in. I wish my own students would do that. No, I don't. But everybody really listened and treated with the utmost of respect. Which I expected, but it was so strong, and all around the place it was. It really, really, really lovely. And Jackie, our business manager, came with me, got me there and back, but also the contractual situation was really, really complicated. Raghu, you will know this. India is, rupees cannot come out of India, and getting pounds into India, getting payments into India, allowing money to go into India from the outside is really, really, really tricky. And if I knew that, I don't think I would have put in this grant application. But with help from Mind India, we eventually managed to negotiate it. But you cannot employ an Indian national in India. So our research fellow is being employed by Mind India, and we are putting our money through there. But oh my God. So it did actually turn out that it was really important that our business manager went and has a really good relationship, and has met face-to-face with Mind India, because it's a financial nightmare. Don't let me put you off, but it's really, really tricky. You need to know kind of what you're getting into. I was hosted really brilliantly by the Institute of Mental Health, the main institute in Assam, and they took me out for a meal. It was fantastic. Here's us going in. That was where the restaurant was, but my taxi driver took me in there, which is a man's club. It's a drinking man. It's like a posh club for men and drinking. and so I walk in, only Western woman in Tejpur, because not quite. University has some Western isn't at it, but definitely the only Western woman there. And that must admit, felt a bit awkward. I was like, hello. And then quickly the taxi driver took me out and got me in the right door, but that was quite fun. So we here's some of the photographs. This is a photograph of what that Ragini, our research fellow, took of the beginning of one of the interviews, our photo elicitation interview. And we have this project site, Project Resilience, which I will, the link is there. Hopefully some of you might want to, lovely if you kind of have a little bit explore of it. The idea is that we're going to do a lot of visual methods work, touch wood, and put our projects up on Project Resilience. We've got Regini's PhD up on this one. I've got another couple of PhDs using visual methods, which I'm going to just touch on. And of course, our big picture project is on here as well. But the idea being that we can provide resources for people and put our films, be a one place for people to see the films, case studies, images, and our findings. But again, getting a design company to do a slightly eccentric, tricky, it wasn't that tricky, but it was slightly eccentric website like this was really difficult, actually. But I'm really happy with the result now, but it took a lot of getting to get to that point. I do just want to touch on our inspiration for the big picture in terms of visual methods, because this is something that Raghu and Brown and I have this real commonality on lots of different things, working in India, mental health, but also kind of visual methods, different visual methods. And I'm just so excited to understand about theatre and storytelling. We've been working in more in photographs and then more recently in films. And I know that a collaborator on one of Raghu and Brown's studies is also a fantastic filmmaker, Armenia Kaluchi, who's also on our seed funding for the Mental Health Challenge Cluster. We have been using visual methods to reach, well, what are traditionally thought of as hard to reach populations. So Mike Jestico has been using, one of my PhD students who's just submitted, has been using visual methods to reach men living in poverty in the UK, to talk about, to actually understand that their positive health strategies, we start really positive, men on low income are badged as being, their own worst enemies in terms of their own health a lot of the time. We wanted to go in positively and go, let's actually ask what they do. And we've been so nicely, not surprised, but we've got evidence of a lot of really positive things that men living in poverty in the UK do. And we found using photographs, giving them a camera, to take photographs of things that relate to their well-being, mental health well-being, physical well-being, their thoughts about it, and then to bring them to interviews has worked really, really well. And just a link to substance abuse, here's a photograph that one young man brought to interview about his drinking. Really, really creative. You give a camera and there's something about a camera and interviewing men that just really gets over, it seems to get over quite a few barriers. Another of my PhD students who got her PhD earlier this year, Penn Smith, has been using visual methods, again, photo elicitation, with another very difficult, apparently hard to reach and difficult to interview population. So patients in psychiatric inpatient care for a range of psychotic disorders with severe and enduring mental health needs, i.e. really psychosis. And again, it was really, really successful. We gave them, the health service we were working with paid for tablets. So we gave each participant a tablet to keep, and it was part of skills development. They learned how to use the tablet and to take photographs, and then they brought their photographs to interview with pen. And again, just the connection to substance abuse. Here's this photo. This photograph is, there's a bottle, and then some flowers. And this was somebody with chronic, very severe mental health issues and substance addiction, and he brought the most wonderful images and talked to them in interview. It's wonderful. And then Regini Duara herself, who's our big picture research fellow, she used visual methods in her work on young people's quarter-life crisis. The problems finding one's place in the world, that we use that phrase to recruit. Did you find it, have a problem finding your place in the world? And she did some interviews in the UK and some interviews in Assam with young people. So there was a lovely connection there. And this, again, connection to substance abuse. This particular man that she interviewed talked a lot about the availability of substances in Assam, and just how many young people get involved, and the devastation on many people's lives, and the lack of support and facility, and the stigma around young people who take drugs in Assam. So we were really, really sold on visual methods. And I'm going to just to finish off, where now, and I cannot say again, how delighted I am to be working with a team and to be funded for to go into the second round for a challenge cluster on global mental health. I am going to just learning so much, and everybody else on the team is more well, as experienced, but if not more experienced than I am in working through the GCRF. In terms of the big picture, we're going to submit to the AHRC, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, for follow-on funding. I think the AHRC is the only research council who still has this follow-on funding, which you can correct me if I'm wrong. I did have a look. I actually didn't look at that many because we're funded by the ESRC and HRC. I can apply to the AHRC for this. And the wonderful thing about it is that because we are working on arts-based methods, we want to increase the utilize more arts-based methods and train peer-to-peer use of arts-based methods in also community engagement. We have a new partner organisation, so we're going forward with Mind India and Near Man, because they've both been fantastic. But we've got a new partner organisation coming in called Agora, who is headed by Sangeeta Goswami's of Mind India, her oldest daughter, Radhika. Aren't they just wonderful? They just so go ahead. Radhika has a master's in social anthropology from one of the big London universities. It's just escaped me. It's just escaped me. But they just set up last year, and they are doing wonderful work in terms of bringing theatre to. They've got this fantastic space where they're doing bringing the community in, bringing theatre experts in to work on community projects, particularly with women and hard to reach and marginalised community in terms of theatre, which I know that Raghu and Brown have immense experience of. I have no experience of, but I'm going to get it if we can get this funding. I'm so excited about this. But they also do artwork. I'm interested in artwork, and they do animation training. So just so excited to work with this group. And we're also going to be working with 2 schools in Assam to do peer-to-peer training in terms of drug drug awareness, advocacy, and rehabilitation and recovery advocacy. So we're working with one school, two schools, one the Royal Global School, which is a kind of high income demographic, and one school which is a low and medium demographic, the Balvahartis Public School. They're both on board with this. So fingers crossed that that application goes in the next couple of weeks, and then our application for a challenge cluster goes in possibly in April, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that GCRF are going to push us out 3 months. They're going to try. That will just give us a little bit more time to build up our foundation for that. There we go. I think I was spot on the 40 minutes. So I'm open to questions, and there's some links to films if people would like to maybe see that afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. That was really interesting. I was watching this and I'm like, oh my God, you know, it's just such an inspiring line of work. So very interesting. I know you said you kind of reflected on your experience of using visual methods, but maybe, I don't know if you can touch a little bit on what you found and maybe some of the trends that you're finding from your research. I'm just too curious. Sorry, I'm abusing my position.
To know from me, so I'm very delighted to say a little bit about what we're finding with the visual methods. We're doing the analysis, so I don't have an awful lot of kind of, we're working on the analysis, but what we have been able to do is to create a kind of stages that young people appear to go through in the journey through from into drug addiction, and then hopefully out the other side. It's quite a complicated path that people can take different routes, and they cycle quite a bit through different routes. But the main phases and points of transition into a problem and out of a problem, where we can make an intervention, I think we've got our fingers on it. And we need to go, we've done that first before going back to the literature, because with qualitative research, which we're doing, we're kind of looking first, and then I don't think we've reinvented the wheel, but there will be commonalities with what other people found. But the main kind of changes are in terms of going from recreational use into what we've termed relaxed addiction. And that it's often not very clear to an individual or from outside whether a young person has moved from recreational use into relaxed addiction. And that's a huge problem, because the experience seems to be that young people can slip into relaxed addiction thinking that they're recreational users. They're not thinking those terms, but they're thinking, I just use now and again, or I can stop this any time. And they don't realize until it's too late that they can't. And that everything changes when they've made that transition. And once they've moved into addiction, they're onto it's a whole new ballpark. They're never not an addict after that. They're always an addict or an addict in recovery, and that makes all the difference in the world. So one of the key things, of course, is to have an intervention that stops one, maybe going into recreational use would be ideal, to not actually go into recreational use, but to really raise everybody's awareness about how easy it is to go from recreational use into addiction, and the red flags to pull back from that as soon as possible. And then this relaxed addiction was a new one for us. And I had quite a conversation with my research fellow who saw it first. And I was like, so this relaxed addiction is quite a lot of people who have a lot of money, who are addicts. And it's like, it's problematic, but they can resource it. And they can stay in this relaxed addiction and have no kind of impulse really or need to get out of addiction, because they've got the resources. And Until it starts to overwhelm them on some level, they can stay there for a long time. And even without resources, people can stay there for a long time. And then there's chaotic addiction, where people move in and out of trying to get themselves off. And they can, but it's the rare person gets themselves off drugs. And then there's the in recovery, where the addict accepts help. And that's absolutely a key step, is accepting that you need help to get off and to commit. And then you can cycle around these, particularly cycling between in recovery and chaotic addiction. Those are really, you can go around those cycles hundreds of times. And one of the key things for helpers and parents and family is to recognize when your young person is in chaotic addiction or in recovery, because they may swear to God, and they will do, that they're in the recovery phase and believe it, when they're actually they're using detox, and they're using recovery to get back on their feet, to start up again. And whether they know that or whether they're lying to themselves, it's really, families want to believe them, and then families believe and they pull back and they're lost again. So it's that kind of tough love of realizing, when is your young person really in recovery, and when are they actually using rehab strategically to get a little bit back on their feet. And that's another huge revelation, is to actually give some red flags to parents and helpers about, no, they're not in recovery. They will go straight back. So that's where we are at the minute, and that's going to feed into our next grant application, which is about focusing on these, intervene at certain points. We know where to intervene now, and to communicate what are the red flags.
Mm.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. That was very interesting. We have some questions in the chat, so you can have a look at them yourself, or I can go through them.
Oh, could you do that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. Raghu said that we can discuss, I'll just go in chronological order as they appeared. So one is about the advisory panel from Raghu. So I don't know if he wants to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. I think that's really useful, because I think for a lot of people, we just go, oh, we have to have an advisory team. And then you go, oh, but I'm not using it, or I'm not, or am I doing something wrong? Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I think I can, yeah, we also have an advisory panel, because obviously it's important that we have one of those as part of the application. We have had one full day meeting at the start of the project, a face-to-face meeting, but we haven't had any further meetings. But we did actually circulate, in terms of where we are actually at the end of year one, and we actually have another newsletter we have circulated the advisory panel. Our plan was to actually hold a second set of advisory panel meetings sometime in, I think, this year, but obviously that didn't materialize. But we haven't had any virtual meetings either as yet. But we do talk to people individually from time to time. But other than that, we don't have any collective meetings as such. But we want to actually do that maybe once we get more into it. We are more into it, but in terms of how it actually touches the policy and the services, etc. At that point, I think we want to have a few more meetings with the advisory panel.
Thank you. And I'm just wondering, whether maybe when we get into the implementation and the the interventions, that it will become more, it will become crucial for us. Thank you.
May I just weigh in on the advisory panel issue as well? In that I found the initial advisory panel meeting for our Kerala project about mental health literacy very useful, because it brought together people with a variety of views and experiences on the issue of mental health in India. And I found it very enlightening to see, on the one hand, there were many people there who adopted a very DSM medical model understanding of the mental health problems with which they were confronted, but somehow Indian people, there's a bit of cultural masking, or people in India tend to somatize a bit. So, you've got to you've got to slice through that with your astute diagnostic gaze and get to the mental disorders underneath, as well as a body of opinion which was much more culturalist, much more in the tradition of people like Arthur Kleinman and Suman Fernando and others, who argued that mental health categories from, say, Europe or the United States are very difficult to apply meaningfully to other parts of the world. So getting a grip on that diversity of opinion concerning the issues with which we were dealing, I thought was very interesting and very helpful.
Thank you, Brown. Yeah, I think, as I say, when we come into interventions, the advisory group may just completely pay dividends here. And I'm really interested to hear that you had a meeting in your study early on. Maybe that's something I ought to have organised with the advisory group. Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's necessarily any right or wrong way to do it. It's just getting a sense of the consensus of opinion amongst mental health academics and practitioners in the area we were working in. You know, how do they see the problem? How do they see the issues, and so on. I think there's a big attraction for what appear to be kind of modern scientific, westernized kinds of principles. And I think some people see these as a big advance over, kind of old-fashioned superstition and stigma and seeing it as being the work of evil spirits and things like that. And we'll grab onto some of these nice new shiny concepts from America. And I think that seems to have been quite attractive to some people.
Great. The next question was also from Raghu. It's about your work in schools. So whether that was a part of the main project or more for the follow-up funding kind of.
Yeah, it's going to be for the follow-up funding. We didn't work in schools for the big picture. We recruited through the rehab centres and Mind India found us a few participants because they work in schools and some school-aged children, young people, came for counselling, and they were suggested to our study if they were appropriate. But also the younger group tended to be siblings of people who had gone through the rehab centres. So again, the rehab centres were able to ask their clients, they knew some of their clients had younger siblings who were drug-free, and gave them information about the study. But I'm really excited to work with these two schools in Assam.
Great. From Lucian. Lucian, do you want to ask the question? Do you want me to read it from the chat?
For me, are there any other questions that people
Yeah, no, there's one from Lucian. Hi, Anna. Thank you for sharing insights from this fascinating project. I was wondering whether there were any ethical issues specifically related to using photography throughout the project. What was cultural aspects in relation to using photography in this particular community? Thanks.
Yeah, we went through two ethics committees. Of course, we went through one in Assam, the LGB Institute of LG Brima, which is the main mental health institute. So, and we were the first Western, well, the first non-Assam study to go through them. So they were delightful, really, really helpful. And I went to visit them. And our own ethics committee. I expected there to be more issues to do with the use of photographs, but in Assam, we didn't come across any more issues than we did in our studies in the UK. So the basic ethical procedures were worked out fine, which were quite detailed instructions about not where possible, not photographing other people. If you were photographing other people, to just get their permission first, but not to photograph anybody under 18. And kind of some suggestions in terms of taking images which were quite metaphorical. So rather than maybe taking a photograph of your two-year-old cousin, take a photograph of one of his toys or something to be able to convey that. So that worked fine, and was all perfectly acceptable. The only ethical issue that was was slightly not surprising, but that was a little different, was the extent to which young people in Assam are under the responsibility of their parents in terms of this kind of thing about a consent. So and this was a really interesting kind of debate between, well, not debate, but we had a dialogue about this, that in the UK, we really encourage young people to be able to give their own consent to take part in studies. And from about 16 or even slightly younger, we do desperately try not to get parents involved for really good reasons. I think it's about autonomy, and particularly in mental health research, the parents could be a problem for the kids. Whereas in Assam, we needed to get consent for each part. Even for some of the older participants, we had to actually ask family consent, really quite old. And we had a debate about this because two of the heads of department from LG Brima came over to the UK, and we hosted them at Leeds. And we showed them around the university, and we had some debate. We talked through about some of the research we do. And then one of them just said, now I know why you why you kind of were puzzled why we needed to get family consent. Really get it now that the family themselves could be the problem or part of the problem, and that your kind of bias, as it were, is towards the autonomy of the young person, whereas in Assam, our bias is towards the responsibility and commitment and respect towards the greater family. Of course it is, but and those then were kind of bumping up in terms of young people and consent. So we obviously went for the family consent because it's culturally appropriate, but that was what raised the slight debate.
Okay, thank you. I think that's really interesting, isn't it? Even when we're coming into what the considerations are, and I think that's very important to keep in mind when doing kind of culturally embedded work. So thank you, Lucian, for that question. The next one's from Raghu. You mentioned about the social media use for the project. How effective is it, and how are you measuring its impact?
Sorry, the social media.
Yes.
Yes. So I just wanted to clarify. We haven't done it yet, so we will be investigating if it has an impact. Okay, so stepping one, a little bit of information. One of my roles in the school is internationalization lead. So although I'm not a traveller, and I really just want to do everything from my front room, and I'll do that as much as possible. I love international work, but I kind of don't want to go. But other people want to travel. But I am internationalization lead, and one of the things that I have under my responsibility is recruitment of international students. So I've been working really closely with marketing at the University of Leeds, and they opened my eyes to paying Google not that much money, and they're the people that insert those ads on your Facebook page and whatever, and they can insert it by postcode. Yeah, they can. So what we've done with our targeting of our adverts for our programs internationally is we've done it. Somebody has done it by postcode across India. Actually, we've got some target countries: India, China, of course, Norway for us, and it's been done by postcode. So I kind of learned there. So I budgeted for a Google campaign. and it's relatively cheap, and obviously they just like, it goes to millions of people and hardly anybody clicks, but when it goes to millions of people you just get thousands of clicks. So we're going to do that, and I will tell you at some point if it's worked. In terms of measuring, you can measure clicks. And you can trace when they, I'm a qualitative researcher. I just, I want to do, I'm really interested in the idea of evidence of impact. I actually find this sadly an really interesting question, and I'm all for actually qualitative evidence of impact. I'm all for increasing the status of qualitative evidence, but I think that's going to be more than my lifetime's work. So in terms of impact, we're counting clicks and counting how long people stay on our website, but we'll also be going into doing our follow-on work. We'll do policy. We're doing a little bit of policy work, events with this if we can, but we'll go in with our follow-up. We'll really start to shake the policymakers with our films as well. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but it kind of talks, hopefully talks to it reasonably.
That's fine. Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
And one more question from Pascal. I hope I'm saying the name right. I apologize if not. Professor Anna referred to something interesting, that there is something with camera when interviewing men. What's your take on the gender dynamics while employing visual methods in research and visual participatory methods?
Yeah, it's such an interesting one, this. I've been involved with, interview methods for many years. And so hopefully I'm reasonably au fait with the kind of research on it. In the area of, first of all, just in interviewing in gender, of course, we go back to Anne Oakley's work in the 1970s, 1980s about women interviewing women, where she's now critiqued as being, obviously a huge, kind of mover and shaker in development of feminist research methods, but heavily critiqued for the, now we see slightly naive assumption that if you have women interviewing women, that it's all equal, and women are going to talk to other women, and that's all fine, and heavily critiqued for gender is just one of our identities, and a white woman interviewing a black woman, what's the identity difference is striking. And then educational level, reach, it's just this starts to just fracture away to you just can't assume that you're first of all, my opinion is you're not going to get rid of power dynamics ever. However, I think participants have massive power in the research, and I think often the power of the researcher is overestimated. I think, and the power of the interviewee is often very, very underestimated. And I think it's about paying attention to what kind of identity kind of categories appear to be making a difference, or what might be being orientated to in the work and in the interview. It's about the sensitivity to orientation, to what is being orientated to, what might not be, and what impact might this be having. Some of that is in the data, and some of it's speculative, but I think there's an onus on us as researchers to pay attention to that. Interviewing men, there is a stereotype that men are difficult to engage in interview work, and then when you do engage men, that they're more difficult to interview. I think there's a general truth to all of that, but it's one of those general truths where it's you never know for any particular person in any particular study. And then the onus is on the researchers to do their best to provide a context and a method that is palatable for demographics as much as you can, as much as they are a demographic. Men are all different. And there is, my experience and reading the literature is that there's something about for men as a group, no individual, but in terms of as a group and in general, if you offer a piece of technology, it just makes it a bit more interesting, and it's a little bit more engaged. And then when you're sitting with men and you're able to focus on something third, so you're not like looking at each other, and you are looking at something that they have created and can talk to. It is really, really creative, and really supports men to do what they do well. And I think it's then saying about our methods is about find a method that facilitates, and it's not that men don't want to take part, it's not that they can't talk, it's about finding methods which allow men to do what they do well. But every man is different.
Great, thank you. That's very insightful, especially thinking about how to apply these kind of not just for the evidence, but also into facilitating that communication. I think that's great. Any other questions? This is it from the chat, but I'm wondering to open up to the participants and whether there are any other thoughts or comments or questions. You can just pipe in, unmute yourself. And
Oh, can I ask a personal question? If I may.
Ask.
Yeah. Well,
Go on, give a go.
I've been aware of your career for a few years now, and you're sitting in a psychology department in Leeds, which kind of, other than you, is a very straight Russell Group style psychology department. And then there's you doing qualitative stuff, interested in visual methods. How do you manage to survive?
Well, apparently quite well.
Well, obviously, they've given you a chair and everything. They must like you. But do you find yourself sometimes, kind of speaking a different language to your immediate colleagues?
Oh yeah. First of all, I'm just a bit of background. I did my PhD in Sheffield, and I did discourse analysis on psychotherapy archive data. So that was a bit kind of using discourse analysis was a little bit off the wall. But I've always I found enough open-minded places. I've always found people to be really interested. And then my lectureship, I went to Leeds. My lectureship was to teach a final year module on psychotherapy research, which was pretty mainstream, and a second year module on psychological disorders, which I still do and love doing it. And I teach qualitative methods. So I have found people open-minded, where I haven't felt I've had to make compromises. So what I have done, I think, is to batter on mainstream doors. So what I've done is done qualitative research and bloody well sent it to mainstream journals. And I have been fortunate that enough of them were accepted to start to build a career. And then I kind of started to build a career a bit on being an advocate for qualitative methods, which was great, and that kind of gave me an identity. And I think what I've just been bloody minded about staying as doing what I want to do, and shouting to the mainstream, this is a good piece of research, why wouldn't you take it? And they have, and starting a trajectory of getting a few grants. And actually, the GCRF program is just fabulous for being open-minded about the type of methods.
Yes, I've been very impressed with what the GCRF has accepted from us and found fundable, because I've tried doing this before, and if you're too interdisciplinary, even if they say they want interdisciplinary stuff, if you're a bit too interdisciplinary, it can work rather badly for you when you read the reviewers' comments. But in recent years, they're actually taking that interdisciplinary stuff seriously.
I think as qualitative researchers and doing this interdisciplinary work, we were just ahead of our time, Brad. It's moved. It's really moved. So now in psychology, you've got to teach qualitative methods. In the syllabus, it's in the BPS syllabus. So, you know, and students like it. And doing interdisciplinary work, that's where it is now. It's all about interdisciplinary. But my colleagues who don't do interdisciplinary work are now out of step. Isn't
that fun for a change?
It's actually a huge thing about collaborating across faculty. And I do loads of collaboration across faculty, and I love it. And it's now, you know, I'm like, it's like these things are like people going, well, Anna, you know, I've always done it. It's not a problem. I don't have to change, and I enjoy it so much. And having colleagues who do different, I mean, psychology is such a bizarre discipline, isn't it? I mean, it's like, I have colleagues down the hall who do, my example I like to give is they do breakfast studies. You know, they come in at 7, give people breakfast, and then, make them run on something and do.
Oh, right. So it's,
and I'm like, where's the psychology in that? And they're looking at me and going, are you really a psychologist? And we're both looking at each other going,
absolutely.
Isn't psychology bizarre and wonderful that we can all do these massively different things? And for my undergraduates, I say to them in the first year, it's going to be something you're going to really, really love, because we do everything in this discipline. No, I haven't found it a problem, but I understand why it might have been. Maybe I just don't take no for an answer. Maybe I
Well, it's obviously worked for you, so it's interesting. Thank you.
Although I will just say this is I did my undergraduate project with Sue Widdicombe at Edinburgh using discourse analysis, and my personal tutor was actually a zoologist. And when I applied to do my PhD at Sheffield, apparently he wrote in my reference, make her do stats, because her career will just go into a cul-de-sac if she sticks to qualitative methods. And I'm so pleased that we never listened to zoologists on qualitative methods, because here I am.
Yes, it's always about knowing which advice from senior colleagues to take notice of and which not to take notice of. If I'd allowed myself to be advised or mentored, I'd have never have made it past senior lecturer.
Yeah, and you've got to love what you do, and you have a reason for loving what you do. You know, if you love doing research, you're good researcher. You have certain research questions that you're just really, really want to explore. The likelihood is that you're using the right methods, and that self-belief, and then persuading other people that actually, this has, this is something in it, is, and also then to be in the really, lovely position of knowing that you had an impact in terms of opening up the door to other people is, not that I'm making any claims on that level, but I think it has become easier. I'm wondering whether the tide is turning slightly on qualitative methods. I had that feeling a few years ago, I don't know. Or maybe it's just that it's become so almost mainstream in psychology that it's just so not an issue that I just don't see it anymore.
I think it's also becoming more mainstream in many of the other health research contexts as well, really.
Exactly, health research. I think the development of health research has really helped the wave of qualitative research, because that's where qualitative research really just demonstrates its value.
I think we've been in the right place at the right time as well, because the arts are desperate to show that they're socially useful. They can't just rely on their aesthetic value. They've got to show that they're doing something of social value, improving health and well-being, contributing to the economy, and so on. I think also there's a feeling that conventional medical research has been enormously expensive and yet somewhat limited in its wider social benefits. You know, there's lots of people have been paid, in some cases, tens of millions of pounds to study little bits of human barcode and crystal ladder, which might have implications for individually tailored medications in 20 years' time or not. But if you do something that engages people with the arts or creative activity, you know, you can see changes in their well-being, you can see changes in their service utilisation, you can see changes in how costly they are, almost straight away.
Yeah. I can't agree with you more strongly on that, Brown. Absolutely. That I think we know with the what used to be HEFCE, I think HEFCE's changed its name now, but a lot of the fundamental funding for the humanities was taken away quite a few years ago, wasn't it? So it's been really difficult. So finding new kind of evidence of persuasive evidence that the arts are really important, because of course they are, and it's a real pity that the arts are having to try and demonstrate. But the impact on well-being is amazing, and that they've really kind of come into their own. And then with psychologists who have that interest, and also the methodologies and the knowledge, it's such a creative combination. I think you're right. We've been very lucky to be on this wave as well.
Yeah. Right. Can I ask one more question, Anna? I mean, why Assam?
Yeah, because my former PhD student Regini lives there.
All right. Okay.
And I suppose, I mean, that's kind of like, it seems like the answer, but actually having a really trusted and capable person on the ground
Okay.
makes
Okay.
and breaks a project.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But what about the drug situation in Assam? Is that quite bad within the Indian context in comparison to other states? Or
Yeah. Okay, so I know nothing about drug addiction. I know somebody who does, and that's that weird thing of kind of. I'm a methodologist, and the thing about being a kind of methodologist in a way is that it doesn't really matter as long as your methodologies can be applied. It doesn't matter what the topic is, but you've got somebody who can cover that. But yeah, the reason for focusing on youth substance abuse was because the call that we got funded in was on mental health and substance abuse. And then I was hoping to have one of my other former PhD students involved who's Lebanese, so Lebanon. And so I had two fantastic former PhD students in two developing countries, nicely separated, Lebanon and India. So I was writing it around them, and we looked at the mental health priorities in India and Lebanon. And the one big issue that overlapped between those two countries was youth substance abuse.
right.
And then we lost Lebanon.
Yeah.
Lebanon was just too difficult to work in. The Prime Minister was kidnapped at the time. I don't know whether it made UK news, but as we, about a month before the submission date, my Jahan emailed me and said, we do not have a functioning government, and this happens about every 3 years, and he's currently been kidnapped, but it's okay, they will hand him back soon, they always do this.
All right.
And I just thought, we can't. The University of Leeds has worked a little bit in Lebanon, but some of these countries they're just too difficult and experienced. But so that's why. And so we stuck with the youth substance abuse, but it was. I'm so pleased we just stayed in Assam. Actually, that was enough.
Nadia?
I'm on mute. If there's no other questions, I guess we can wrap this up. Thank you so much, Anna. This was so insightful and human, I would say. You know, the talk was just easy to connect to and understand and appreciate. Thank you so much.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, Nadia. I just had I just had a brainwave that we should share with Anna. Really, perhaps I think, you know, when with both our projects, Anna, we should actually hold a joint conference in India, perhaps next year.
For sure. And I don't know, Siobhan Hugh-Jones, who is on our Challenge Cluster Seed Funding, has got a big grant to work in India as well, in schools. So we might have quite a few nice things to put together in our work in India. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's got the funding?
Siobhan Hugh-Jones.
Yeah.
She's the PI. I'm not on that one. I don't know whether she's maybe spoken to you about it or you know about it, but
I know of it. I'm not going to tell you how, but I know of it.
Well, she's working with NIMMs, maybe your contact, I don't know, but it's a big one. I think she's just got just over $1 million.
Yeah. So is that already been funded?
Yeah, she starts in January.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great idea. We'll keep talking, and fingers crossed for our challenge cluster, Raghu. I'm optimistic. But
yeah, we're having a conversation anyway with other seed funding stuff, so it'll be good.
Yeah.
Many thanks for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all your questions, for inviting me. It's just lovely. Thank you. And also, you know, to have this contact with you is such a treat for me as well, and to, you know, through Raghu and Brown, just, you know, understand a little more about the just amazing work that you do is just really, really special.
Yeah, and we'd be very willing to return the compliment, of course. You know, I'm sure one of us
fantastic.
will come and do a virtual seminar. If any of your colleagues at Leeds or anywhere else you're associated with would be interested.
I will keep in touch with you. We will get that sorted.
Yeah, or something of the kind. So it might be worth thinking about.
We'd love to hear about your work. Yes.
Great. Something to look forward to.
Sure. Let's just hope they don't pull the GCRF funding too quickly.
Yes, always. Great. Just to remind everyone that we have recorded this, so this will be available on MSRC. I'll send you a link as well, Anna, so you can share it.
Thank you. And there's links to some small, to our project website, and to one short film. It's a minute of just kind of teaser on it, and then there's the 5-minute one. So the link's there if you want to have a look at it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I don't know how I come off now.